Laughter is the best medicine. We have all heard about this famous adage, isn't it? So it is really fun to share a good laugh with our friends and family members, maybe. But did you know that it is actually something that is going to improve your health? Yes, you heard that right. When people are in the company of funny friends, funny family members who are always making them laugh, then they are definitely going to be stress free. And that is what research tells us, right? So let's today also in our episode here learn how to harness the powerful benefits of laughter and humor by understanding the different tips and techniques of how you can perform stand up comedy. Yes, so I am Sapna Mahadevan, your host for today's evening, and I am going to again take you through another episode of Stand Out at Stand Up Comedy. Here it is. Explore yourself at a comic level, right? So I can see a lot of people joining into the live here. Hello messages, good evening messages, a big wave of hi to all of my viewers for today. And yes, today again, we are going to embark on this insightful journey where we learn how we can be inducing humor in different situations in our life and maybe observe that and make comedy out of it for our audiences. Yes, so today we have a different subtopic that we will be coming up with that you will come to know in the later part of our episode. But let's get started with all of the coming up segments and the plethora of activities that we have specially curated for our dear viewers for today. There you have it on the screen. We first talk about what is the definition of stand-up comedy for all of our new viewers. And I'm going to come up with a particular scenario, and we are going to try to join the dots by giving you all of the four definite elements to comedy and how we can be tying up all of those elements which with the scenario that we have for today, right? So it's quite simple there. We already know all the four essential pointers. We have been seeing it in all of the past episodes, right? So with the scenario, let's catch up with the essential elements and try to frame our very own comedy setup today. Yes. Now, apart from that, we will give you some pro tips and expert tips. Then there are fun segments like the crossword segment, the identify the comedian, some icebreaker questions to keep you all entertained, and there's also quiz time, right? So do hear me out when we have these insightful details that we bring up to you, right? And apart from that, there are vocabulary enriching exercises as well, just like decipher the idiom or synonymous words. Yes. So that was what our episode looks like for today. And let's get started with the first icebreaker segment. This is called the movie title trivia. And you need to name these famous comedy movies, right? Here is the first one for the day. And you can see a cute little rabbit there. The tagline says, "The garden was small potatoes." And can you guess what is the name of this movie? It is also adapted from a book. And quickly in the chat box, name of that movie. And that is correct. Thanks a lot, Anshul. It is right. Of course, it is Peter Rabbit. More comments coming up there. So yes, it is Peter Rabbit. And let's move ahead to our next picture here. There it goes. Another interesting character that we can see there. Any idea the name of the movie? You have to write that in the chat box there. Okay, interesting movie. And let me see if I get some answers there. Abominable. That is correct. Yes, it is the correct name. Thanks again. And moving ahead to the third picture here. So this is going to be the last one in our segment. And do try to give me the correct name. We are playing the movie title trivia. It is the first segment of our episode here. And it is kind of like an icebreaker where we get to build up the momentum, right? And Rava, that's correct. Rava, the Last Dragon, is the name of the movie. And thanks again for being a participative audience. You can write to me here in the chat box any questions, any suggestions or feedbacks that you would have for me. And I would be really glad to have an interaction. Yes. So those were the three movies that we had in our first segment. And now let's move ahead and understand what is stand up comedy, right? So, stand up comedy, as we all know, is a performance or a show in which the comedian they perform original jokes on stage in front of a live audience, and the aim is to make people laugh, right? I know it sounds to be a little daunting, and let me tell you, it is actually a tough nut to crack. Comedians all over the world, famous comedians that you know of, they have all put in a lot of hard work, dedication, and effort, and also a lot of practice in perfecting their craft, right? So if you want to be taken seriously in this stand-up comedy arena, then you have to be sure to give in a lot of time and dedication to this performing art, right? Now, the average stand-up comedy show gets 4 to 6 laughs a minute from the audience, and the feedback is really instant, because if the auditorium is echoing with uproarious laughter, then you're sure that you did a good act, right? So that's what stand-up comedy is all about. And let me now take you through the subtopic of the day. So, for today, we are going to explore alternative comedy day two. And we already did day one, where we gave you one scenario there. And now we are going to build up another different scenario for day two. And we're going to see how we can wrap up a comedy set or a comedy routine all by ourselves. Yes. Now, that sounds really interesting. You may want to stay here with me all throughout the episode so that you learn all the nuances of performing a stand up comedy act, right? Now, let me first tell you what alternative comedy is. So, this is one type of comedy or a genre in stand up comedy where the joke material maybe is not mainstream, or it is not stereotypical, right? So, whenever the content is unique and not something which is popular, then that particular setup is called alternative comedy, right? And let me also tell you that in various places around the world, this term here, alternative comedy, it has different connotations, right? So maybe in some places it's not about the joke material, but it is more to do with the joke structure, right? So it really depends on which part of the world we are talking about alternative comedy. But the only pointer to understand here is that the audience has no preset expectations about the joke, because they do not know how this is going to go. It's not something which is mainstream. And in laughter clubs or in comedy clubs, there tends to be a certain vibe. And alternative comedy explores different types of material. So your material is really unique when you're doing alternative comedy. And now, with that, let me move ahead to the scenario that we have for today. It's quite interesting. It is day two of alternative comedy that we are looking into. And the scenario for the day is newborn in an Indian family. So bring out the comedies you see when a kid is born in an Indian family. Observe all the rituals or the various traditions and myths that are followed, and try portraying them funnily, right? Now, again, a disclaimer here, this is only done for entertainment purposes. So please do not get offended with the scenario. We are only trying to give you an example of how comedians might have different techniques up their sleeve to make use of such a scenario to come up with a comedy setup in alternative comedy, right? Now, let's move ahead to the first icebreaker question, and then we move further ahead into the elements, all the prerequisites, and we will see how we can match up this example or this scenario to the various special pointers, right? Now, before going any further, I have an icebreaker come up on the screen. So there it is. Quite a simple one. Do you like to trek on mountains? So, quickly in the chat box, let me know if you are the adventurous sort, if you would like to go trekking on the mountains, take in the scenic beauty, maybe set up target for you and strive to actually reach that final point that you have thought of, right? So, are you the type of going trekking on mountains? Do let me know in the chat box, or do you like to do that? Never tried is one comment that I get here, but I would like it. Okay. Yes is another comment. So we have a lot of affirmatives coming here. I have gone in for a small trek, not that very long, with my kids, and that was really special. You boost each other up to finally reach the target point, and it definitely gives you a high, right? So yes, is the comments are all affirmative that I can see here in the chat box. Thanks again for all of your participation, and with that, let me move ahead to our next segment, which is establishing the essentials, right? So here we have four definite elements, and by now all of my audience members also know what these four elements are, right? So you may want to type in your answers as well there in the chat box, but let me bring this out to you quickly. These four elements are opening, bits, transitions, and finally the closer. Yes. So um, when I talk about the opening act, or how you're going to start with your comedy routine, then let me tell you that the first impression is the last impression, and that's why you need to make that connect early on into your act. And so, always start with a great joke to get the audience laughing from the first line. Yes, and let's now look at the scenario. If you would recollect, it was a kid born in an Indian family. That was the scenario that we were talking of. So let's catch up with the scenario for our opening act. So, how you can open your comedy set is by saying that newly born kids appear to have encountered the most illogical and funny myths as soon as they are born. The doctor handed over the kid to the mother, and before she could even stare at her with love, the child is carried away to the religious priest, who will not only hold her but will also give her a name, and in return is going to charge you up real nice. So of course, the doctor must be thinking to change his profession and become a priest. At least then people will not ask him to reduce his fees, right? So that's how you start the opening segment, maybe make giving in a parallel between the priests and the doctors, and their salaries, or whatever they get from their professions, right? And this was the opening act. Now the second element that we are speaking of is the bits, right? So this is nothing but jokes that the comedians place all throughout their comedy routine, and every particular joke is going to have a detailing setup. They are going to have some characters and also a problem statement, maybe. So with the help of punchline, which is the conclusion, which actually garners the laugh, the comedian almost always goes against what the audience is expecting that is going to happen, and that thereby they are garnering all the humor. Yes. So the second prerequisite of our comedy setup is going to be bits, and you want to plant, depending on the timing that you have got for your record or for your setup, you will have n number of bits placed into your set, right? So maybe say if you have 3 bits placed, right? So every bit is going to detail the setup, talk about the characters, and also the situation or the punchline, right? Now in this scenario, let's see how we can actually catch up with the scenario, right? So this is the bits part that we are talking about, and I'm missing a slide there. So let me just tell you that after the priest has taken away the child, after there are various calligraphies done on the kid, right? There are huge spots of coal that can be seen on the tiny face, coal or kajal that you can see on the tiny face of the baby, and usually this is done by the grandmother. She underlines the child's eyelids even though it's hurting her. She also puts a big spot on her forehead to save her from evil eyes. So, again, some traditions that are strictly followed when a kid is born in the Indian family. And the kohal or the kajal that you see on the face, that's even bigger than the face itself, right? Sometimes. So that's how you can induce the humor. And now, after placing all of those bits there, let's look at the third one, which is the transition, right? So the transitions are going to be short conversational bridges, and they are going to connect one joke to the other. So if you have three bits placed into your comedy setup, then all of these three bits, you need to make sure that they blend really well, and they do not seem to be like a solo where people are baffled as to how this gets connected to the other joke, right? So there has to be one theme that you're going to follow for your whole comedy setup, and you keep placing these bits into your set up in a way that it forms sort of like a storytelling exercise, right? So the third element here is the transition, and let me show you how we can go further ahead with this. And there it is. Then there comes the jewelry exhibition. The kid has to wear big amulets and lockets that have metal rods and cardboards that are tied to them. Sometimes it is so big that they can cover their whole chest. And then there are bracelets, anklets, and God knows what all different names of ornaments that there are. The weight of all of those things is much greater than the kid herself, right? So that's again another pointer that we are adding up to transition from one joke to the another. Yes. And now let's move ahead to the fourth element, which is the closer. Yes. So again, as we told you, all of these four elements are important. The opening bit was really crucial because that is going to determine if your audience's attention is with you or not. And similarly, the closer or the fourth element is going to be the final joke of the show, right? So here in the final joke, you want your audiences to go back smiling, and that is why you need to put a little more extra effort in making them laugh, right? So there are again techniques that comedians have up their sleeve which they use to induce laughter, and one of that techniques is called the callback, or maybe also sometimes the donut effect. And this can be introduced in the final joke. So, what a callback means is some kind of a reference to a joke that you would have done earlier on in your setup, maybe during the opening or maybe during the bits, right? And that is how you give a full round connection to the joke, right? So, a callback is something that you would want to introduce into your closer. And now, let's see how this can be done with the help of this example here. So it is seen that these kind of stuff will protect the child, but in reality, these are the things that are making her cry even more. So maybe she is really annoyed with all of those things that she has worn, and as she cries, to make her stop, a big silver spoon filled with milk is thrusted into her tiny, delicate mouth. It's believed that the silver spoon can barely fit into her mouth, but will enhance her eating habits and will help her in developing beautiful teeth. Can you even imagine that? I can't make you laugh at this because I need a long time to laugh at this myself. So that's how you can end the joke. This is something that the narrator is going to say, and it's going to make the audience laugh out loud with all of those traditions that you have observed closely and that you're coming up with in your alternative comedy segment. Yes. Now, after all of these essentials here, let's now move ahead to another segment, which is quiz time, right? And here it is. So I hope you are all having fun with these scenarios, and that you're getting a hang of how you can place your own scenarios into the subtopics that you're going to write about. And give me a thumbs up or some emoji there, maybe a yes comment, so that I'm sure that you're able to understand all of the essentials. Yes. Now, with that, I'm going to move ahead to the quiz questions. So, yes, there are thumbs ups there. Thanks for that. And let's move ahead to the first question for the day. Where does Santa Claus live? That's the first question that we have here in quiz time. Quickly in the chat box, let me know if you have an inkling of the answer. Where does Santa Claus live? A lot of rhymes that we have learned maybe about this. In the North Pole, of course, yes. Santa Claus lives in the North Pole. Thanks for that. And moving ahead to the second question, what is the largest mammal in the world? Okay, so the largest mammal in the world. Who loves watching Animal Kingdom maybe? You're going to give the correct answer. Yes, so I get the correct answer there. It is a whale, the largest mammal in the world. Thanks again for all of these answers. And now it's time that we move ahead to two expert tips. These are regarding establishing the essentials. So let me tell you, the first one is don't be funny for the sake of being funny unless you're writing a joke book. If you're writing fiction, you still need a beginning, a middle, and an end. So what this wants to tell you here is that you definitely want to have a series of jokes or funny situations, but you do not want to make it so very long that people are not interested in learning about it, right? So these situations that get you to 50,000 words is not what we want here. You still need a goal and a conflict, just like story writing, but it needs to be precise, it needs to be concise, and you need to do this not for just being funny or just for the sake of being funny, but simply because you want to write something which your audiences are going to laugh out loud with, right? So that's one expert tip here. Always think about having concise jokes and do not over explain yourself. Now, the second part here is use the power of three. And what this means is the power of three is something which not only in writing jokes or in comedy or in stand-up comedy, it is also useful in story writing as well. So you would have always seen that we have different titles which are always with the number three: the Three Musketeers, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, right? So we always see that there is the number three which is always mentioned. Yes, so that is what is the power of three. And in particularly in stand-up comedy, what you want to do here is make a list of three things. It could be situations, things, people, maybe whatever comes to your mind. Make a list of three of those, and the first one that you have listed should make you grin, the second one should make you smile, and the third one is the one which should make you laugh. So you're really raising the bar of your stand-up comedy, and the also the laughter is getting raised by first by a grin, then by a smile, and then finally with a laugh. Yes, so that's what is the power of three. Check into Google some of the jokes that you can find there with this power of three, and that will give you more stronger evidence about this power and also a better understanding, right? So this was another expert tip here. You might want to jot down all of these tips that we have for you, and afterwards, whenever you find the time, you can Google up all of these concepts, right? So these were the two expert tips here. Now let me move ahead to one of the vocabulary enriching exercises. It is called decipher the idiom, and the first idiom for today is have a good laugh, which means to laugh heartily, right? So that was quite simple. Have a good laugh will mean to laugh heartily, and how you can be using that in a sentence. We all had a good laugh at Tom's ridiculous outfit. So maybe Tom was wearing some kind of a bizarre outfit, and that's why you all had a good laugh, right? So these are idioms that you would want to jot down and apply wherever it is apt. Maybe you can use it not only in your conversations, but also while you're doing some creative writing, maybe a composition or a letter writing, whatever it is that you do for your school exams or maybe classwork. You can always use these idioms when wherever they fit, right? So have a good laugh will mean to laugh heartily. And with that, I'm going to move ahead to our next icebreaker question, and there it is. So do you like painting is the question that we have here. And quickly in the chat box, give me a yes or a no. I definitely love painting. And these days in the internet, we can see so many different techniques for doing a painting, right? The ones where you use a toothbrush and then you get a spray painting done, or maybe you um, paste a masking tape, and all around it you just paint around in circles or in vague prints, and when you take out that masking tape, then you have a nice figure made in front, right? So all of these various techniques really intrigue me, and I definitely love trying it out. Do let me know in the chat box if you are also a fan of painting. And yes is the comment that I get here. Okay, and Varun tells me sketching and doodling as well. That's wonderful. So that's nice. Painting, yes, is another comment here. Great. Okay, so that was the icebreaker question, and let's move ahead to our next part, which is frame the fun part. Yes. So again, I'm going to give you three important elements here for framing the fun part. And just like in stories, while you're writing a comedy setup as well, you need these three elements here. So we are going to talk about characters, a particular situation or a conflict, and also a setting. Yes. So comedy writing is also very similar to storytelling. The structure might change a bit, but you still need all of these essentials. And every bit that you are going to introduce into your comedy setup is definitely going to talk about the setting, some funny characters, and what was the problem statement. Just like in our scenario here, we spoke about a situation where Indian traditions and myths that we can see while a child is born, right? So similarly, you are going to take up one particular topic, and that would be the conflict or the situation, and speak about the setting in great detail, right? And have funny characters. Yes. So we already saw that there have to be some comic characters. You can take inspiration from the people around you, maybe, or if you would have observed in public places some peculiar habits of people that you would have noticed, that could be something that you can talk about in your comedy setup. Yes. Apart from that, we have the situation. So be descriptive about the conflicts that you're going to place. No matter how gray they sound, project them funnily, right? And after the situation, we have the last and the final thing, which is the setting. So here in the setting, you have to choose the setting of the plot carefully. So just like I told you, even while you're writing a comedy routine, there is a plot, right? There are all of the elements that you find in story writing, and that is why you need to talk about the setting, that is the when and the where. Now if you're going to give vivid description to your audiences, then their interest is one, what will happen is their interest will get piqued, and second, they will be able to visualize everything that you're saying, and third, humor as we see it, it's not only about talking, but it is also about the picture that you imagine in your head, right? So in this age of visualization, we have so many memes going out and around. We have pictures with funny captions. Yes, so we do definitely have a lot of visualization in the stand-up comedy arena as well, right? So what you need to do here while you're writing a comedy setup is think about the setting, be very elaborative, give out vivid descriptions, and make sure that you're funnily portraying the scene. Yes. So these are the different elements in our plotting the plot, and how you can do it in a funny way. And I hope with all of these pointers here, you're definitely going back home with a lot of knowledge about how you can write a comedy setup. And of course, it will come only with practice. So you need to have a little bit of patience there with yourself. Keep writing, and once you have downloaded all the creativity that you have, then maybe you can go back, read it out aloud again, edit and tweak some of the wordings maybe, or if you find that whole portions of it are really not funny, then you can just eliminate that portion entirely. And that's how you can edit the material in such a way that it becomes concise and something which is really good joke material. Yes, and this is going to come only by practice, right? So these were the various essential tips, the four definite elements in our essentials, and also the framing the fun part that we saw. And now I'm going to move ahead with another fun segment. This is called name this famous stand-up comedian. We have a picture there. He is a famous Indian stand-up comedian, and do give me the name in the chat box, right? I'm going to wait for a couple of seconds here. Not sure is one name, one comment that I get there. Okay, think about this. That is correct. Thanks again for that. Vipul Goyal is the name, and you might have seen his performances in the social media, maybe. And famous stand-up comedian, Indian stand-up comedian. That was the next segment, and now let's move ahead to another another decipher the idiom that we have here. There it is. Be no barrel of laughs. That is the idiom that we have. So there are actually two idioms here. One of them is being a barrel of laughs, and the other one is in the negative, be no barrel of laughs, right? So when I say be no barrel of laughs, it means to not be very fun or funny or maybe entertaining. And that means you're overly serious and boring, right? So that is, if you want to say that someone's serious and boring, then you will say be no barrel of laughs, right? But at the same time, if you want to say that the person is really hilarious and funny, then you will be saying you are a barrel of laughs, right? And now for this particular idiom here, let me give you an example sentence. So there it is, be no barrel of laughs. And the example is, working here is no barrel of laughs. You will have some really serious responsibilities. Yes. So the narrator wants to say that this workplace has a lot of serious responsibilities that you would have to undergo. And that's why it is no barrel of laughs to work here. It's not funny at all. Yes. And impressive way to use these idioms to express yourself. And I would definitely want all of you to jot down these idioms someplace so that you can refer back to them whenever necessary, right? And these were the two idioms that we saw for today. Be no barrel of laughs was the last one that we saw now. And the other one also regarding laughter, right? Now let's move ahead after this segment to another expert tips and tricks segment. And here again, we have two important tips for you. So the first one is repetition and wordplay are great tools. Even if you can't tell or write a joke, wonderful things can emerge when you start playing with the words. Yes. So I remember in one of those episodes in the past, I have told you one joke about Supandi from the Tinkle comics. And this joke, the hero of the joke was the wordplay, because there was a mention of orange juice concentrate. And it was really funny how the author there of that joke turned that around into a clever wordplay and made us all laugh. Yes. So if you recollect that joke, then you will understand what wordplays are all about. And so these are two great tools, repetition and wordplay. And you definitely want to try that out with your stand up comedy set. That is tip number one. And tip number two, think of the Big Bang Theory or the last comedy that you watched. How did they build it up? Maybe you can analyze the last comedy series that you would have watched, or a comedy movie, any kind of a comedy setup that you would have watched. Analyze it. How did they structure the joke? Also, be kind to yourself, because all of these shows and movies often rely on a team of writers. And that is why, if you are a beginner, then you have to really have patience and perseverance to be doing this. After you write the jokes, try portraying it funnily in front of your near and dear ones. Test it out once before you go out in front of a large audience, and you'd want to know definitely whether your jokes are landing or not, and different tweakings and improvements that you can be doing. Yes. So all these are the tips that we had for today. With that, I'm going to now move ahead to the last segment for the day, and it is a fun segment which is called Locate the Words. Here it is. So you need to find all the hidden words in 1 minute. The clock is really going to tick, and You will not even come to know when 1 minute is through. So be really quick with this. Look closely into this letter maze and give me 4 words that are hidden. Right now, let me also give you a tip that all of the words that you can find here would be from today's episode. So try and recollect the scenario that we spoke about, the different essentials, the plot building pointers, and you will be definitely finding out all the 4 words here in the letter maze, right? So I got the first word here in the chat box, which is mother, and that is correct. Okay, mother is one repetitive answer that I get there. And what else? Okay, there is earring, that is correct. So we spoke about all the ornaments, right? Then what else? 2 more left. Doctor, that is correct. I was just thinking because doctor is the first one that I could, see there in that letter maze. So yes, it is doctor, mother, earring. One more to go. Let me reveal that out one by one. Here we have mother. Next one is kohal, right? That was the one that you could not guess. And the next one is earring, and the final one, doctor. So thereby we have all the 4 words. Kudos to you for finding out all the words so quickly, and I know all of you were paying attention, right? Great. So with that, we come to the end of our episode. Let me quickly give you a roundup of all that we learned today in our alternative day 2 episode. And first of all, we spoke about the essentials in plotting the plot. And I told you that it is just like story writing. So we require funny characters, detailed setting, and a situation or a conflict which can be portrayed funnily as well, right? Now, after this, we also spoke about 4 definite elements or maybe essentials that you want to focus on while you're writing a comedy setup. So, opening has to be really on point, it has to be precise, and you have to start off with a great joke so that your audiences are in splits from the first line itself. Then we have small jokes planted into our episode. Then the third element is all about the transition, where we see to it that there are bridges that connect one joke to the another in such a way that it's done without any hiccups. Right now, the fourth one is again a crucial element, which is the closer. And closer would mean that your audiences are going back with a laughing face. Yes, and you definitely want them to have that energy and that expression, because only then it means that all your efforts have paid off, right? So the closer is going to be the final joke in your segment, and this is again going to have a callback or some kind of a reference to the earlier joke that you had made, and that is how it's going to come full circle. Yes, so these were all of the essentials that we had in today's episode. And now for some project work, where I want all of you to put pen to paper, try writing a comedy setup on alternative comedy genre. And what you need to think about is something which is not mainstream, something which is a unique topic, maybe. And think of all the essentials, all the plot building pointers, and thereby come up with a great joke material that is going to make people laugh uproariously. Yes. So, this is something that I would encourage all of you to be doing. And be kind to yourself, because it's going to come only after a lot of practice. So don't get disheartened at the first attempt itself, right? So that was the project work for today. And let me tell you, for tomorrow, we have tips and tricks. And I'll be again meeting you at 6 p.m. India time. Do stay tuned in with me here for learning all the different tips and tricks that we have to offer. And with that, we come to the end of our episode today. I am Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today. Hope you all take good care of yourselves and keep laughing. Bye bye.